Oh, howdy y'all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 2 discussion. Although this video is also going to touch on Path of Exile 1, more on that later because there has been a delay for Path of Exile 2. Also, fun fact, I have got some sort of cold slash flu slash COVID thing. Don't know exactly what it is. It's not that bad, but it does mean my voice is a little bit funny at the moment. Granny Games today made an announcement. That announcement is that Path of Exile 2's expansion is being delayed. 0.5.0, which is going to be called Return of the Ancients. Previously, we had been expecting this to be announced for the 30th of April for the live stream announcement and the 8th of May for the actual start of the league. Now, there were two reasons that was starting to look pretty unlikely. The first of these reasons is that there just wasn't really much time left until an April 30 announcement day. And one of the things with these announcements is that they're the biggest marketing Grinding Gear Games does. Marketing only works if people are paying attention to it, and it's not just the super fans that Grinding Gear Games need to be tuning into this, it's also the lapsed players. It's also the people that are like, oh, maybe that sounds interesting, but I haven't got around to trying it yet. What they need to do is have enough teasers in the interim that all of the most enfranchised players are not just paying attention to the game, but they're talking about it again. That they're evangelizing to their friends that might have already played the game in the past, and as a result, there's time for that news to spread. Well, April 30th, there kind of wasn't that much time for it to spread. However, May 7th, there is. So that's the first reason that they delayed it. The second reason they delayed it is that there is going to be a major expansion in the largest competing game in the genre, Diablo 4, which is going to be coming out on the 28th of April. Now, even if this expansion ends up being disappointing, chances are a lot of people who are in the audience of both games are going to be paying more attention to Diablo 4 on that day than they will be to Path of Exile 2. And as a result, I feel like it was one of those cases where if the Diablo 4 expansion is extremely good, then the GGG live event will just be buried in good news about Diablo 4. If the Diablo 4 expansion is a complete flop, then the Path of Exile expansion will just end up being buried in news about D4 bad. And if it's somewhere in between, chances are people who are having fun with Diablo 4 are just going to be paying more attention to playing that game than they are with coming over and giving GGG Live's event a watch. Ultimately, it wasn't a date that looked like it was going to work that well for them, and they've chosen a new one. But they've also done something a bit unprecedented here, and that is that they've got a wider gap, a much wider gap, in fact, between the live stream and the actual release. So the GGG live event is on the 7th of May in the USA and similar time zones, 8th of May for me over in Australia. But the actual league start itself is 22 days later. So it's going to be on the 29th or the 30th, depending on where you are in the world. Personally, for me, as someone with plans that were really set in stone for the 16th of May, this is an absolute relief. This means I will not end up missing out on several hours during the day on the launch of the expansion, but it is also quite a bit later than a lot of us were expecting. Worth noting how unprecedented this is. Every single time since Grinding Gear Games have settled into this GGG Live format, it's always been 8 days from GGG Live to league start, with the exception of one time. And that was the one time that 8 days before Grinding Gear Games' league start was exactly the time that Last Epoch's league was launching. This would have ended up going pretty badly for both games, and they both had a significant overlap in shareholders at the time. As a result, Grinding Gear Games pulled forward the GGG Live event by a day. Now, GGG also put out a Return of the Ancients announcement teaser. This really doesn't have much information in it, except just for a thematic image of an absolutely monstrously large tower rising from the ground. Presumably this is not anything related to the tower mechanics that exist or have existed in the past in various different formats in Path of Exile 2. Presumably it's something akin to the Burning Monolith, at least that's what it looks like. But the scope of this tower is one of the biggest things you will ever see. It starts out zoomed incredibly in, where you're looking at a statue up close, and that statue itself is quite large. And then you get this sense that this structure that you see in the background here is possibly 10 kilometers tall or more. And it just bursts through the ground. It looks really cool, but it doesn't really have any more information in it than that. Now, everything that I've talked about so far has been exclusive to Path of Exile 2, but I did mention there was going to be some Path of Exile 1 news in this, and that is because Path of Exile 2 has been delayed. I figure the best thing to fill up the interim with is going to be a Path of Exile 1 event. Now, I haven't worked out exactly what this is going to be, but I do plan to run a private league, and I'm considering starting this my Saturday lunchtime. So this is the same day of the week as League starts, the same time approximately, but 6 hours later. So if League starts for you are normally about 2 p.m. on a Friday, then expect this to start about 8 p.m. on a Friday. If League starts for you are typically 2 a.m. on a Saturday, then expect this to be about 8 a.m. on a Saturday. And if, like me, they're normally 6 a.m., then you can get your beauty sleep and then get up for a midday start. However, I still need to brainstorm a few things about this. What I'm going to do is put a link down in the description below to my Discord, and I'm going to be discussing things over there. My general thoughts, though, would be that this private league would have a very, very minor difficulty modifier and otherwise be essentially Mirage with a new economy. So that's something I'm thinking of running starting this Friday or Saturday, depending where in the world you are, and then going forward for maybe 20 days. And that really ends up being the Path of Exile 1 news part of this video. I'm going to leave it there. My Evolobs have interesting results, and down in the description, you'll find that Discord link if you're interested in finding out more about my private league or potentially shaping some of the discussions about what it might be.